Right, welcome to the second session of computer applications module 4032. Today is the second session. We'll discuss what we have covered last time. We look at actually Python basics, discuss why the features of Python programming language and why it is getting popular nowadays, and then different modes available in Python programming. And then we also discuss how to get help. So the first function we discuss is a print. And also the second function we discuss is also help. So for example, if you want to know more details about how to use print function, you can use help function. Within that, you can provide print as an argument. Then we discuss about, constant and variables available in Python. We discuss the number strings we can represent exactly as it is, and depend on the representation, it will treat differently. You can have it as integer values, that means whole numbers. You can have it as a floating point numbers with a number with a decimal point, and then you can have it as a complex number. So these are the possibilities. Then we could use the type function to see how Python treats each of these different inputs. So for example, if you say type 508, it will take it as an integer value. But if you use a decimal point or decimal point with zero, I mean any value, then it will consider as a floating point number. Then this is known as a complex number, and this is a string value. But remember that when you represent large numbers, you should not use commas to group the number, because that will provide an error in Python, because this comma representation something else in Python. And we discuss about the use of string values. String can be represented using either single quotes or the double quotes. And you can use, these two interchangeably, depend on your requirement. But if you ask me like why there are two representations, sometimes if this represent one of the representations is part of the string, then you can go for the other one. So that's why we have single quotes and double quotes. At the same time, if you want to go for multi-line strings, so you better use triple single quotes or triple double quotes. Then we have moved on to discussing variables. First thing we discuss is there are some rules that you need to follow. The variable should start with a letter or an alphabet or an underscore, and the rest could be a letter, underscore, or a digit, right? And the names are case sensitive, which means if you have to be extra careful about how you represent your name. Then we look at some of the keywords. The keywords cannot be used as your variable names. And then we discuss the assignment, especially how a variable or store values inside the variable. And then we also discuss Python statements, operators and operands. And under that, we have covered arithmetic operations. So these are the symbols used for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. And then this is called exponentiation, which means power of, and this is integer division, and this is modular division. And operator precedence is also important, and these rules should followed when you're evaluating. For example, multiplication, division, they have the same priorities. So if you have a situation like this, usually you can go for left to right, identifying which comes first. Then we also discuss operation on strings, right? For example, we could use, the string values, but generally you cannot use any other expressions, but you can use two things, concatenation and multiplication. So these two are possible. And finally, we finish our discussion with type converter functions. So we already discussed there are three different types: integer, float, and string. And depend on your requirement, you can convert in between. For example, if you say 3.14 and if you use int function, it will try to convert this number into integer value. So how it convert integer? Just discard the decimal part of it and the outcome will be 3. Similarly, 1, 2, 3, 4 colon could be converted into integer value. But then if you have 23 bottle, this is not possible, right? So these are the things that we have discussed last time. Okay, so let's start today's session. So the very first task we are going to discuss today is input and output, simply how you can interact with the user. So in Python, when you want to get somebody's input to a program, we can use input function. So that is known as built-in function. So let me show you. So I'm going to use a new code window. You can go to colab.research.google.com and you can log in using your Gmail, Google credentials. And then I'm actually trying to type a code window. Now, first thing I'm trying to use is input. So see what will happen when you use an input function and if you run it. So simply what will happen, you will get a prompt where you can type something. So first time it will run, it usually takes some time because it will allocate the resources it needs to execute. So now we can type anything. Let's just type my name. And that's it. And you will see outcome as a string value. So remember that input, when you just say input, it will not show you anything and wait for the user input. And whatever user input is taken as a string value. Now, the problem with this is user doesn't know what to input, right? So better you write something like this. So let me say input, enter your name. So this would be more useful. So you see the difference is within the input function, we provide some text value. And when you run this time, it'll be more clearer and user knows what to enter. So you can see here, it expects my name. So let me put some, right? And when you press enter, again, it will take it as a string value. Now, still you can see that just taking somebody's name is not enough. Maybe you can further process it. So best way to do this is you store in a variable. So let me say, I'm going to say in equals input, enter your name. So what happens here, you take the name from the, right, through input, and whatever user enters stored in a variable called in. So I can say Sampath. And when I press enter, it'll Sampath stored as in. How to check it? So maybe we can say print. Let me say hello, right? And then I will put comma separate and then say in. So what happens here? When you comma separate, hello will be print as it is, and then it will print the name. So ideally, it should, print hello Sampath. So you can see here a couple of things. One thing is we can use input function to get input from the user. And then the other one is usually whenever you get something from the input function, it will take it as a string value. So if you want, you can check this. If you say type n, for example, you can see that n is a string type. Right, okay. Now, when you want to take somebody's name, we can use an input function and we can type whatever the message that we want to show to the user, and we can get it to a variable. But then if you need a number, you have to be careful. Why? Because whatever user enters, it will take as a string value. So you need to convert a function. So for example, if you want to get an integer value, then you better convert into integer value. So what happens here? You get a number, but number take it as a string value. So we need to convert it. So let's see how we could do this. So let's take input, enter a number, and then we need to convert it. So conversion can be done with int. And then we can store in a variable n. So you can see that here I entered 10. Then now it is stored in variable n. So when you say print n, it should display the number. It should display the number. And then when you type, when you say type in, we know the type function will tell us the type of the variable in. So the type is so when I take it now, you can see print n will print the number, and type in, we can confirm that it's an integer value. So make sure that when you're using an input function, if you want to get a number from the user, you should use a convert function. If you need an integer number, use int. If you need a floating point number, which means if you want to have a number with the decimal points, you should convert it to floating point number. So make a note of this. Right. Now that's about the inputs. Next one, I would like to discuss about the outputs. We already seen how to use print function. So whatever you use within the print, it will be displayed. And at the same time, you can print multiple items, right? So for example, if you say, print, yes, this is one part of it. And then let's say we are going to look at computer applications. So this is two outcomes. And you can see it will print the two strings with a small space in between. So this is what you will get with the print statement. Okay. What's more? Actually, you can actually use a lot of other ways to work with the numbers. Now, in this example, we are going to show you how we can print. Yes, given A and B, we are going to print one number. We are going to print two numbers, print with the change in separation and so on. So let's look at. Right. Now that we have discussed this, let me show you a couple of things. Now, first one, when we have two numbers, in this particular case, let's say we have 28 we have A28, B15. So A28 and B15. Now, printing. So when you want to say something you need to print, we can print individually. So for example, we can say print A. So ideally, it should print value of A. So it should print the value of A. So A is 28 in this case, then B is 15. So the next one, if you print A comma B, what will happen? Right? So now we have A 28, B 15. So when I say print A, it will print 28. So print A will give us 28. And when you say A comma B, we have 28 and 15. So if you remember the help function, when you say help print, it says when you have two values, in between you will have a space, right? Now let's see how we can change this. So for example, when you say print A comma B comma, there's a argument that we had to provide what you are going to use as separation. So for example, if you use comma, see what will happen. Now this indicates that. So the default value is in between is a space. Now with this one, we put a comma in between. So this is comma that we have used. Okay, try these three. If you're finished, please raise your hands. Right. Now, the next one, there's another way that we can actually put this, right? So that's we are trying to do. So what if you type this? Remember, we talk about string concatenation. Whether we can do this, right? Let's see. Now, if you type this, print A plus B, and within that, let's say we are going to have this. If you try to do this, we are getting an error. The reason is, right? A is an integer value, B is an integer value, this is a string. You cannot concatenate. So what do you need to do? You have to convert this to a string value, remember? So one way to get the same answer is we can use a string value to convert A to a string value, and B also we convert into a string value, and then we might get the same answer. But remember that this is using string concatenation. So the output we can depend on how we can represent, we can do a lot of ways. So remember, very important. Right. So that's about the simply how you can use the print function. But the next, I want to discuss more details about how you can output. So let's look at how we can do this. Another idea is, let me go to a slide first. Now, let's say we want to get a blank in between. So see, one technique we have used. Let's say we are going to say PGIs and with computer applications. And in between, if you want to have a space, we can use print function. So let me demonstrate. So let me use print PGIs. So this is a string values. Let's have computer applications. So if you run this, you can see this will print one after the other. First, it will print PJs, then it says computer applications. So if you want to have a space in between, what you could do is simply you can have a print statement in between without any value inside. So when you have this statement, what happens? It will add extra line so that in between we have a space, right? So this is another way to represent, space in between. Again, when you finish, please raise your hands, then I'll move to the next one. Right, let's move to the next one. Okay, so in Python, there are three ways we can format this. When I say three ways, this is the oldest way, especially when you are looking at some codes in Python. These all the three ways are used, and you should familiar with it. The first one is called formatted output using string modulo operator, right? Now, string modulo means that we will use percentage symbol when you are representing numbers, right? So that's what we will say percentage value. Now, in this one, we are going to look at getting us a number with a decimal point, how we can format it the way we want, right? So let me explain. Right. Now, in this example, I will use a variable a and I will say that the number a is 1, 2, 3, 4.56789. Right. Let me run this. Let me say print a. And when you just say print a, it will print as it is. Right? And this is the outcome. Now, let me show you different way that we can represent this number. Now, let's say that you want to represent the number as an integer value. So this is how we are going to print it. So we can print and you will have a formatting string. So within brackets, single quotes, we will have it, and then percentage mark, and then we have a variable. So in the formatting string, we have to tell what format we need. Usually, again, we will start with the percentage sign, and depend on the number we put, so it will display differently. So for example, if you need the integer value, we use simple D, which represent this as a integer value. So what happens, it will simply discard the numbers after the decimal point, right? So this part is a formatting string, string module operator, and a. This is how we will write. Okay. Now, another one. So let's say we want to represent this number, right, as a floating point number. So we can put it as f, right? So f indicates that it's a floating point number. Now, if you just put f, you see how it represents. So let's say I want to limit. Let's say I want to limit this answer to 2 decimal places. So we will put dot and 2. The 2 indicate number of decimal points. So the idea is this number will restrict only to 2 decimal places. So when I run it, we will get 1234.57. Similarly, if you need 3 decimal places, so we can use the same. So let me say print, and here I'm going to put 3. So the first one will represent as a 2 decimal places. The second one will represent as a 3 decimal places. Okay, if you finish up to this point, please raise your hands. If I elaborate this representation, so this is called string module operator. So we have number A. So this is called formatting string. So with the formatting string will tell us exactly what we want. And then we have module operator and the number. So here we will indicate that we need as an integer value. So simply discard the values after the decimal point. And the next one, like D, if you need it as a number with a decimal point, we use F, indicate floating point number. And then number here after decimal point, we indicate how many points that we are going to retain after 2 decimal points. Right. Okay, let's move on. More examples. So sometimes when you're formatting, the number of total digits is very important. Especially, let's say, when you're printing a bill. So the number before this, let's say 7, right, will tell us the total number of digits you allocate the representing this number. So when I run it, so this indicates that the total number of total number of digits you allocated is 7. So 7 means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right? Let me change. Let me put 12, for example. So before 7 will change to 12. So this is how it look like. So it will put 12 digits starting from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So altogether, you use 12 digits to represent the number. If you finish up to this point, please raise your hands. If you finish up to this point, please raise your hands. I'm waiting for Anjan and Rishantini and to finish. Okay, thanks. 2 more statements. So let's say using the same fashion, we can have more advanced stuff as well. Let's say we want to have like more messages like price, the rupees, and so on. So this is how we can represent. We can say, okay, the formatting together with the messages that you want to have like this. So when you say rupees, percentage 2.f, string module operator and A. So this is how it look like the outcome. It says rupees and the value is, restricted to 2 decimal places. Similarly, if you want to say, let's say price rupees, so I can say, okay, the price rupees, and this is how much, right? Last one, let's say you have 2 numbers. right? We have 2F, that means 2 decimal places, and then 1F. Right? 0.2F and 0.1F. So here we have two values. So therefore we have to have two values. Remember, we have to use comma separate A, and we have another number. I'm going to select. So if I do this, now look and see how it happens. The first value is A, will restrict into 2 decimal places. We have put 3 point something. That will actually, when you use formatting, so it becomes 3.1. Okay, if you finish up to this point, please let me know. Then we are finished first representation. Let's look at the other representation. If you finish up to this point, please raise your hands. Right. Let's look at the second method. So I told you, like in this format, what we have used is string module operator. The formatting is given within the single quotes. We have a module operator and the number. And when we have multiple numbers, usually we use brackets and comma separate. That's what you need to remember. Okay, the second one, like more recent one after that. In this format, it's similar to previous, but we are using a function called format function. We will have again string representation, the format representation. And this format representation, you can actually use curly brackets. If you want, you can specify some index together with the format. And then within the dot format, we have the number, right? So this is how we usually going to have it. Right. Now let me explain one at a time. Right? Okay. Now I'm going to use the same number, by the way. So let's look at the second method. So we can say print, right? When you say print A, we know our number is this. And then the new version of this or new way of this using dot format is we say print, and we can use formatting like this, and then we have format, and then we'll have A. So this is how we will use it. Now, the formatting string, I told you you can use curly brackets, and then we can have an index and colon, and then the number format. So for example, if you want to make it 2 decimal places, this is how we can put it. So indexing is not that important, but you can see here. So this, with this representation, this will reduce the number of decimal point to 2 places. Same goes with the previous ones as well. If you remember, we discussed about use of total number of digits. Let's say 7. It'll no change. It will be exactly as it is. But if you put, like, for example, 12, you can see the difference. The total number allocated, if it is 12, now you can see there are some spaces in the beginning. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? You can see how it goes. But if you're wondering, like, if you need only the integer part of it, it's slightly different. So we can say instead of 2, we can put 0. This is how we are getting the integer value, slightly different way. And the point here is usually it will rounded off, not like in previous case. So 0f means like no decimal places. You will get 1235. Right. Now, if you want to have the prices, it will be the same. Okay, before that, let's finish for this. Okay, finish this. And when you finish, please raise your hands. Adarsh and Rishantini, have you finished? I'm waiting for you. Okay, good. Let's move on the other one. Now, the next one is, let's say if you want to have some text inside, it'll be the same as previous. So you have a string formatting, but then we have dot format and we'll have the num. So there's no change of this. But the string formatting, we can have like, let's say price in rupees, let's say, and then we can have within the brackets how we are going to say. So let's say I'm going to limit it to 2 decimal places, and this is how we can print it. So it will take it as a price rupees 1234.57. Remember that this will be rounded off. Okay, the interesting part comes with when you have numbers, right? And that is why maybe they have used indexes here. Well, so far I have not put any index values. So let me take. So let's say we have print, right? And we have a string formatting for 2 numbers. Let's say format, and within bracket, I'm going to have the variable a and a pi value. So let's say we have 2 numbers like this. Now, within this, you have to have 2 brackets, isn't it? You have to have 2 brackets. I'm going to put and in between. So the first one, let's say I'm going to have 2 decimal places. Second one, let me have 1 decimal place. Right? Let me run this. Right. So when you do not have specified indexes, it'll automatically take it. The first one is known as 0, second one is as 1. So I will put 1. No change of here. So the first number, we'll round it off to 2 decimal places. Second number, we round it off with 1 decimal place. So let's say you want to do the other way around. What do you mean by other way around? The first one with 1 decimal place, right? And then the second one is 2 decimal places. So if that is the case, just change the index. Put 1 here and put 0 here and see what will happen. So now you can see in this format, you can change the locations when you use these indexes, right? So the first meaning the second number is converted to 2 decimal places. First one is, you formatted into 1 decimal place. Okay, just try this, and then when you finish, please let me know. I will discuss the next one. Next. Now you can see here one of the changes compared to previous one is you can, without changing the order of the numbers, you can change the formatting. So by changing the formatting, especially index, you can change. Right. Let's move to the last one. So this is the newest version or newest number representation. This is called formatted string. So you can see here, we have a simple F and a single quote. Within that, within curly brackets, we represent the number and the formatting. Right. So let's see an example. So in this one, we are going to use the same problem, but using formatted string method. So in this one, what happens? We get a number, right? So it's like printing, and we will get the outcome, right? Similarly, we can say print if, and this is the string. Within that, we can have the previous method, but this time instead of index, you have a number, colon, then the steps. So you can say 2F. So what happens here? Number will be, right, round off to 2 decimal places. Similarly, you can use price F string. So within that, I can say, okay, price rupees. Okay, now we have a, right, 2F. So now it says price. And then when we have two numbers, we can say F, we can say A colon dot 2F and 3.1415926, right, colon, I can do 1F. So this will convert into a 1 decimal place. Okay, I missed bracket here. That's why I got an error. Yes, finish it. And when you finish, please raise your hands. If you finish, please raise your hands. Right. With that, I'm conclude the session for today. So let's have the Kahoot session for this. So please log into kahoot.it. So please log into kahoot.it and wait for the pin. So have your registration numbers as the nicknames. We have two more to join. No problem. If you don't have a registration number, you can log in with your name. About the others, are we joining? Let's stop recording.